Hey everyone, welcome to our deep dive. I'm so glad you're all here for this one. We're always, trying to find new productivity hacks, tips, all that. But sometimes it feels like the more we try, the more overwhelmed we get. So today we're going to be looking at a totally different approach, one that suggests we stop fighting our natural rhythms and actually start working with them.
That's exactly it. We'll be taking a deep dive into this whole concept of signal blocks. These are like dedicated chunks of your day, designed to really leverage those natural energy patterns you have so you can hit that peak performance. It's about understanding how your system works, setting up your environment to trigger those states you want, almost like you're creating this perfect workshop for your mind and your body.
Ooh, I like that workshop analogy.
Yeah.
But how does that work, practically speaking?
Well, the foundation is understanding those signals your body is sending you. Think about it. Have you ever felt like you just have way too many tabs open in your mind? It's not just a feeling, it's actually how your brain is working. Your hypothalamus, which is like the control center for so much, really is only thinking a few hours ahead.
Wait, so our brains aren't the master planners we think they are?
Well, not exactly. That's why state matching is super important. We have to consciously set up our environments to cue our bodies and minds for whatever task is at hand. And that's where dopamine comes in.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. Dopamine, that reward chemical, everyone's always talking about it. So how does it fit into all of this?
Most people think that it's all about the achievement, like getting the reward itself. But actually, it's more about the anticipation. It's why we get those bursts of motivation when we're looking forward to something.
Oh, so like how I get excited to read a new book even before I actually open it up?
Exactly. Imagine you always read under a specific lamp. Over time, your brain starts to associate that lamp with reading and with how much you enjoy reading. So just turning on the lamp, that becomes a trigger for focus. It tells your mind to get into that learning state.
That's a pretty cool hack. I'm already trying to think about little cues I could set up in my own day. But what happens when we have all these tabs open all the time? Literally and metaphorically.
That's when we run into problems. Our brains, even with all those dopamine hits, can only handle so much at once. So the key, and this is a core part of this signal block approach, is to learn to effectively close those tabs.
So we're not just talking about our browser windows, are we?
Not at all. It's about minimizing all those distractions, both internal and external, so you can direct your brain power to where it needs to go, to where it's most effective.
Okay, I'm starting to see how important it is to declutter that mental workspace. But how do we actually structure our days to use these signal blocks?
Well, the author proposes a framework that really aligns with our natural rhythms. So you have morning, midday, and evening blocks. Each one is meant to maximize different types of activities.
Okay, so I'm guessing the morning block is about setting the stage. For a productive day, what are some of the key elements we should be focusing on?
Yeah, it's all about establishing the right foundation, both physically and mentally. The source material actually says that your brain goes through these conformational changes based on its beliefs. So creating that expectation of performance is really powerful. So we start with a consistent waking pattern, getting up at the same time every day, ideally using an alarm that's gentle and mimics natural light.
Right, that makes sense. I've definitely heard about how important that is for regulating our circadian rhythms.
Yeah.
But I've always struggled with being a morning person.
Well, the key is consistency, even if you start with just a small shift. Then we move into a physical signal, something that gets your blood flowing and tells your body it's time to wake up.
So we're not talking about an intense workout, right?
No, not necessarily. It could be some quick yoga, a brisk walk, even just some light stretching. It's all about activating your body and preparing it for the day. And then, this is where the magic really happens. We go right into that first deep work session.
Ah, so we're taking advantage of that early morning focus time when there aren't many distractions and our brains are at their sharpest.
Exactly. And by starting with that deep work, we set a really positive tone for the whole rest of the day.
Okay, so that's a pretty solid morning routine. How do we keep that momentum going into the midday signal block?
Well, this block is all about matching your physiological state to what you need to do, the demands of the tasks you have. The author calls this physiological state matching.
Oh, this is where it gets really interesting. I remember reading about that blood pressure analogy. Can you remind me how that works?
It's like this. Think about a marathon runner. They need to have low blood pressure for endurance. But a strong man needs high blood pressure for explosive power. In the same way, we can kind of adjust our blood pressure to suit our work, higher for when we need intense focus, and lower for more creative or reflective tasks.
So if I'm working on some complex problem, I would want my blood pressure to be a bit higher. How do I actually do that?
There are a few different techniques. Short bursts of intense exercise can help. Even just holding your breath for a few seconds can raise your blood pressure a bit. And then on the other hand, deep breathing exercises, especially ones that emphasize longer exhales, can actually lower it.
Wow. I never realized we had that much control over our own blood pressure.
Yeah.
So we use these techniques to adjust our state throughout the midday block, depending on what we're working on.
Exactly. And along with that second deep work session, the midday block also has a specific movement pattern. This could be a longer walk, hitting the gym, anything that gets your body moving, and breaks up those long periods of sitting.
My back is thanking you already. But wouldn't that mess with our workflow?
Not really. Actually, these movement breaks can actually help your focus when you get back to work. And then finally, we have a signal check in this block.
What's a signal check? It sounds like something out of Star Trek.
Well, it's about tuning in to your body and your mind. Taking a moment to just assess, like, how are your energy levels? Are you feeling mentally clear, or is your mind scattered? How's your physical readiness? Based on what you find, you can make some adjustments to your environment.
Or your schedule.
So we're constantly checking in and making little tweaks based on what our bodies are telling us. That's a really powerful feedback loop.
Okay, so we've covered morning and midday. What about the evening block? I'm guessing it's all about winding down and getting ready for a good night's sleep.
You got it. But it's more than just good sleep hygiene. It's about making that conscious decision to shift gears. You're telling your body it's time to move from doing to being.
I love that. So how do we make that shift effectively?
Well, the author emphasizes that forming habits is often about removing things, not adding more. So in this block, we're trying to cut back on screen time, avoid caffeine or big meals before bed, basically creating a space that's calm and relaxing.
It sounds like we're making a sanctuary for our minds and bodies to recharge.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And within that sanctuary, we have 3 key elements: final focus, down regulation, and next day setup.
Tell me more about final focus. Is that like a last burst of productivity before we call it a night?
Not necessarily. It could be one last work session, but it could also be something more relaxing, like reading, listening to music, spending time with loved ones, journaling, meditating. The important thing is to choose something that helps you disconnect from work mode and move into that restful state.
So we're not just turning off. We're really consciously deciding how we want to end our day.
I like that. Okay, what about down regulation? Does that involve any specific activities? This is where we actually start to wind down. Dim the lights, take a warm bath, put away those devices, do some deep breathing. All of those things help to calm your nervous system and get you ready for sleep.
So it's like we're guiding our bodies into that rest and digest mode.
That's it. And then we have the next day's setup, which might seem weird since we're talking about the evening.
Yeah, but I bet it's about setting ourselves up for success the next day.
You're right on track. This could be laying out your clothes, getting your breakfast and lunch ready,